Do you want to hit some rapid fire?
Let's go. Rapid fire time, baby. Like it.
I
mean, it's 45 in.
I know.
Ish.
Exactly. There are a few other, like I said, there are a few other comments that I have that kind of tie into some of the rapid fire stuff.
Okay.
So I held a few back that we
Nice.
can kind of
done.
work in there as well,
You're
as we usually
professional.
try to do.
Professional.
So after Tyler Buchner's portal news, what's the outcome of the upcoming season that will determine if bringing in Sam Hartman was indeed a success?
I mean, I don't know that my answer would have changed whether Buchner was here or not. I feel like it's playoff or bust for me personally. And I think if they can go and they can win a playoff game and they're in the national championship, I think bringing in Sam Hartman was a success. I mean, that's the outcome that I need to have. And it would be great if Tyler Buchner was there by his side, giving him a hug afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, obviously that's probably not going to be the case. So
Yeah.
Either way, that would be the success for me that now Notre Dame is one step closer. One step closer.
Yeah. And that's, my point was factoring in the fact that now you've potentially lost Tyler Buchner, assuming
all your eggs are in the Hartman basket. All of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're all in the Hartman. And so is it worth, because like yesterday, we asked the question, if this was the NFL and this was a trade, like you were trading Sam Hartman or trading for Sam Hartman, but you had to give up Tyler Buchner, would you have made that trade? Jesse and I both said, yeah, I would make that trade because your goal is winning a national championship.
Sure.
So, I guess like if you looked at this, if we made this multiple choice, again, what's the outcome that will determine if it's a success? Do you have to win a national championship? Do you have to win a college football playoff game, or is just getting to the college football playoff enough? Is it winning a New Year's Six Bowl if you're not in the playoff? To me, it's at least getting into the playoff is what it comes down to. But when you consider essentially the collateral damage that bringing in Sam Hartman meant that you lost Tyler Buchner, to me, it's at least getting to the playoff because you are at least mortgaging your short-term future with next season, with the guy who you planned on being your starting quarterback next year now being gone, potentially, again, assuming that he's not going to pull his name back out of the portal and come back.
So in December, if I told you, you can bring in Sam Hartman, and he's your starting quarterback for the next year, and Tyler Buchner is going to transfer. Like you bring him in, he's out. Like the day you sign Hartman, Buchner's out. Or B, they don't sign Hartman, Buchner's the quarterback for the next 2 years. What would you have taken at that point?
Say that again. I missed the first part of the question there.
First scenario, they sign Hartman and Buchner leaves the next day. He's gone.
Okay.
And it's guaranteed. Okay. You know this going in that if you sign Hartman, Buchner's gone. Or you don't sign Hartman, you sign a different quarterback. Tyler Buchner ends up being your starting quarterback for the next 2 years.
Which option am I taking?
Which one would you take? Not knowing what Hartman would necessarily do for Notre Dame. We still don't, but
Right. I think I would still roll the dice on getting Hartman.
I would too.
Here.
I would too. And I would have to think about it for a while.
Just said, bringing in a college football Hall of Fame quarterback is never a bad decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy choice for me because I do think more long-term than just 1 year. I would have to sit and think about it for a little while, but I think at the end of the day, I would still bring in Hartman because of all of the experience that he has and what he has already accomplished thus far in college football. And you're rolling the dice on 1 year. You are rolling the dice on 1 year. I think 24 is completely jeopardized right now, but 23 could be a great year. It could be a great year if everybody stays healthy and things go the way I hope they go. 24 is a complete toss-up right now.
I agree. And this is one of the questions that I saved that D-Rock Irish asked. Are we currently in a better situation now with the quarterbacks than a year ago?
Yes, because the ceiling is higher. But more importantly, if everybody's healthy, the floor is incredibly higher than it was.
I think the floor is at least higher with Angeli compared to Drew Pine going into last year. Like if you look at each position right now, 1 through 3. So last year it was Tyler Buchner number 1, Drew Pine number 2, and Jelly number 3. And so now, even with Buchner gone, you still have Hartman number 1. That's an upgrade.
Yep.
You have Angeli number 2 versus Pine
I think
last
it's an
year.
upgrade as well.
I think it's
I
at
will say
least
that. It's at least even.
again. I think it's at least it's at the very least break even. And then you
Yeah.
have Kenny Minchie at number 3, and I think that is an upgrade.
I think
because, again,
Minchie is better than Angeli was as a freshman.
Right. They were
So-
both early enrollee quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I would slide the chip over to Minchie's side there. So even for right, the biggest question is you've still got an inexperienced backup quarterback, and you didn't know how Drew Pine would react to that. In the short term, he was horrible. His first couple experiences coming in at the end of Marshall and then trying to start the Cal game, it stabilized. He got better. He was serviceable for a while, and then all of a sudden he regressed to the mean, and he was never the same quarterback.
Right.
After that, he was just a very average quarterback.
Right.
That they were able to work around. After.
Yeah.
For the rest of the season, and I
Right.
think that Angeli can definitely be better than that, but we also still don't know because we haven't got to see him do anything other than hand off a couple of times last year. Once it hits the fan and your feet are in the fire, that's when you find out. But
Right.
I do think that there is a higher ceiling, at least for Angeli. But
sure, I agree with that.
We won't know until we actually see that. But I do think overall, I would still favor this group compared to last year's group overall.
I mean, it took a big step backwards when Buchner transferred out, obviously. Like before, It was like a Grand Canyon of difference between the two rooms from one year to the next. It got a lot closer, right? But I think your point I think Angeli's not afraid to throw the ball deep, number one.
Right.
So I don't think that he would have the same limitations that Drew Pine had.
Like Andre says, he doesn't think that he'll be afraid to make the throws that Pine didn't want to throw.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that.
100%. I think there was a lot of Ian Book in Drew Pine from a don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over. I think he was in the system long enough under Tommy and BK that was ingrained in his head too. And I don't think Angeli was. So I feel like he would still, sling it. And I think he's got better weapons around him as well, which I think is also part of it. I think his offensive, I think the offensive line is going to be better. I think the running backs are going to be better. I think the wide receivers are better. So he's got better weapons than Drew Pine had last year, but he'd also be willing to get the ball to them, unlike Drew Pine was. So I do agree. I think the ceiling is higher with Angeli than it was with Pine. Not sure about the floor, but I think the ceiling is higher.
Okay. So we've talked about, you said you think that they need to bring in another transfer quarterback this year if they can find that kind of fit.
It's a pretty narrow fit, but yes.
Right. So what about next year? Because we know Hartman is going to be gone next year. So if Hartman's gone and everybody else stays the same, you've got Angeli, Minchie, and then CJ Carr as a true freshman. So would you consider another transfer portal quarterback for next year?
I consider it, but it's going to have to be the right fit. And what I mean by that is kind of a cone guy, to be honest with you. It also depends on the maturation process of Angeli and Minchie. Look, I love CJ Carr more than I can even express on this show. I mean, he just got promoted to the Elite 11 finals. I mean, the kid's going to be really, really good. I'm not ready for a true freshman to be handed the keys of the Ferrari just yet. Okay. And it depends on where Minchie and Angeli are in their development.
Yes.
But I do feel like if they aren't as far along, and their development's going to have to be in fast forward because no one was expecting either one of them to be the starter in 24. So in order for that to be the case, their development is going to have to fast forward over the next 12 months. So where are they at? If the right quarterback is in the portal, a la a Sam Hartman, and I know those guys don't come around very often, somebody with multiple years of starting experience under their belts, looking for a 1 year, want to be a part of the reigning national champion, that kind of a thing. If you find that guy, if that guy exists in the portal, and I can't come up with a name off the top of my head, but if that guy exists, I think you take a strong look at that guy. Absolutely. But you don't bring in somebody to compete with Minchie and Angeli. You don't bring in somebody that's there.
No,
You have to
again,
bring in somebody that's here.
You're good. Yeah. And Father David says, give Minchie the keys in 24 if Buchner doesn't come back. And I think that everyone's going to, I think that really by December is when you're going to have to make this choice. But remember, that's when everything went down last year. We didn't get the official word on Sam Hartman until after Wake Forest bowl game at the end of December, but they obviously knew in early December what the plan was, that they were going to bring this guy because that's what hastened, Drew Pine's decision to leave. They'll know where they stand. They'll have a much better feel for whether or not they think Angeli or Minchie can be the guy in 24 by December.
Absolutely.
You got a whole season of practice.
Yeah.
And, again, it's like you don't know what the season is going to bring in terms of, which of those guys maybe get some playing opportunities and that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing, because again, like with everyone talking about developing quarterbacks in your program and all that stuff, that's the first thing that you're going to have to look at. But they'll have a much better feel in early December for what those guys are, and you basically that's when you make that call. If you think that if you look into the transfer portal and you say, we need this guy as opposed to these inexperienced guys for, just like with Hartman, then you make that call. But I think it's a decision that you don't make until that, you don't have to make it until that point. And so you don't have, so you won't make it until that point.
No, I think
it on their development.
I think that it is. Look, if they don't bring in, I don't think they're going to bring in a transfer quarterback, right? I was giving like a perfect scenario situation earlier in the show for this year. So one of those guys is going to have to be QB2, right? You're going to know a lot about whoever that guy is by December of 2023. You're going to know a ton. Exactly. And I would make a massive effort to whoever QB2 is to get him in a game, many games throughout the year, because I think
much as possible.
That was one of the things I hated about the last regime is they never got the backup quarterback in ever. And it was super frustrating. Like, get the backup in with the ones, by the way.
I wouldn't say never, because that whole Book Wimbush thing happened, before.
Well, that's a very isolated difference. And he wasn't really QB2. They had like a package for him. So that was a little different. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm talking about there's a clear 1, there's a clear 2. We're winning by 21 points.
Yeah. Well, and for that matter, they got Buchner in as a freshman too, now that I think about it. But
that wasn't like an end of the game scenario.
Package.
Get them in the game when the game is decided. It's over. We don't need to pad the stats anymore. Get them in, let them have a drive with the 1s, and then multiple drives with the 2s. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, get them in the game. And then
but you advocate, like, if you're up by enough points, you would advocate like running the full offense for a series, potentially.
Absolutely.
Going out there,
with the
throwing
backup
passes
quarterback
downfield, whatever it happens to be.
100%. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. No question. I do have to answer this one from Irish Shaitan. Says, Vince, would you start?
Go ahead.
Would you start Angeli against Tennessee State? Absolutely not. You don't adjust your starting lineup based on who you're playing against.
Yeah. You start out with your best.
Yes.
This is something I learned from Paul Maneri when he was the baseball coach. You start off with your best, and if your best puts you in a situation to get in reserves, you get the reserves in at that point. You never start backwards and try to work, because then you're sending a message. You're sending the wrong message to everyone in terms of like, why do you even have Tennessee State on the schedule in that situation? Right. If you can get Angeli in by halftime because you're up by enough, that's fine.
Awesome.
But
even better.
Yeah.
But I would
never start a number 2. I would never start a number 2, because I mean, like, the Ball State game a few years back is a prime example. Like, they went into that game. But they went into that. Right. But you remember Ball State. Yes. I know this for like, they went into that game telling, number 2 and some number 3 guys, like, your parents will want to be at this game because you're going to, be able to get in. And look what happened against Ball State. Now, they didn't necessarily start 2s and 3s, but they had the wrong mentality going into that game completely.
Right. The only, like, as a baseball coach, right, for example, if I had a doubleheader against an inferior opponent, my first game, I'm throwing my ones are in, my normal starters. Maybe I throw a lesser pitcher, but my ones are in. Second game, that's a different conversation, right? I might sprinkle in some other guys that haven't started a game, that kind of thing. But to me, that represents like the second half, right? That's the second game of a doubleheader. That's kind of like the second half of a football game. Okay,
Right.
Now it's time to kind of, empty the bench, get some guys out there. Once you have everything in control, that's way more important. Way more important. And again, and somebody said it, Tennessee State's the first home game. People would erupt if Sam Hartman wasn't the quarterback in the first home game of the season.
No kidding. I didn't even think about it that way. That's a good point. All right. Deion Sanders.
Oh,
this
whole
Deion Sanders thing going on at Colorado.
There's so
I'll tell
much.
You what,
so much.
They're up to 46 players now
51.
who have entered the portal. Is it
51?
51?
It's been updated since you sent me the list, by the way.
Wow.
51. Yes.
51 players since Deion took over December 2nd have entered the portal now for Colorado. And they brought in roughly 30. But according to an article in The Athletic that came out, it was either last night or today, at least 20 of those players, and probably more at this point, have entered the portal just since last Saturday. So basically since Monday, after Colorado's spring game last Saturday. So The Athletic has quotes from some of the players who have been essentially forced into the portal by Deion Sanders. They have been run off the team by Deion Sanders. And there is a relatively new NCAA rule that allows first-year head coaches to cut as many players as he wants as long as the school honors the scholarship. Like if they don't find another place to play, the school honors the scholarship. That's fine. What do you think of all this that's going on out there with Deion and Colorado right now?
There's just so much to all of this. Like there's also some pretty ticked off kids who used to play for Colorado because he won't let them have their practice film from last year to show other coaches so that they can get recruited. I mean, there's just so much to this, right? Now, I do believe that a new coach should be able to form the team that they want in the manner in which they want to form it. I mean, I don't really honestly have an issue with that, but you do need X amount of players, whatever that number is. You need that many to like field a team and practice and be a productive college football team from Sunday to Friday. And it doesn't sound like they have enough of those guys at the moment. And I think he's been a little quick to run off guys. I mean, 51 guys is a lot of guys to be running off. And it sounds like most of those guys were asked to leave. So
correct.
I think that's a little aggressive. I do like the fact that at least their scholarships are going to be honored for, I guess, at least a year so that they can still go to school while they figure things out. But I think that's pretty, again, I'm trying to look at this from both sides.
I mean, they were 1-11 last year.
Right.
So they obviously needed a roster overhaul. I get that. But it's just like, as D-Rock just said, and I put the comment up there, reading the article, players are saying that, like he didn't even know some of their names and he just ignored most of them. And it was like the spring game was kind of a formality. And it's just all very, I realize this is a Pro Football Hall of Famer we're talking about, but like it's like it's being run much more like a business. And I get it. Big time sports is a business, but it's like these are college guys who were made a promise, coming out of high school, and keeping the scholarship, I'm sure, is fine to some of them. And a handful, I think, are going to stay at Colorado and maybe not even play football. But there's like an offensive lineman who was a son of a guy who was on the 1990 national championship team who was cut. There's a guy who I saw on Twitter just before the show started who is one of these guys who has been cut, and he's trying to get practice film from back in the fall from, before Deion was even the head coach. Yeah, but they've got, film on him in practice. He's trying to send his practice film out. Yeah, because he didn't play. He's trying to send his practice film out to schools to get a look. And Deion's not even giving him practice film from before Deion was even the head coach.
Right.
So it's not like
he's not giving away
protecting any
secrets.
proprietary information. So it's just like the way this is all going down is just, it's gone from, I think a lot of people were kind of rooting for Deion, when he went in and was kind of making waves early on, to just all the things that you're seeing that have come out of this. It's kind of hard to stomach, really, even for a team that even for a team that was 1-11 that obviously needed an overhaul.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to watch all this going down in real time.
And like I said, I don't have an issue with a coach trying to make the team in their own image or how they want to construct a team. I have no problem with that. Yeah. But if you're going to cut guys and you're going to get rid of them, then you should be the first one in line to help them find a landing spot.
Right.
It's not just cut them and kick them to the curb. I do have a problem with that. That's just not human, in my opinion. Like, help them in any way you can to help to find a landing spot. And he's not doing that. And that's messed up.
Because in the NFL, it is a cutthroat business.
Correct.
And I realize there's not going to be quite as much, human touch or whatever. But again, you're talking about 18 to 22-year-old kids who, you're coming in, and it just doesn't sit right. Like WJS asked this earlier. Do you think college coaches should be allowed to cut players? If yes, would it be a good idea? It's a good academic kid, and he would get cut. He would get a 4-year academic scholarship.
I don't really see hold on. If yes, would it be a good idea if it's a good academic kid and he would get cut? He would get a 4-year.
So it's basically kind of what we were talking about. You still honor the scholarship.
He still gets the scholarship. So, I mean, that part of it from an academic side, then that's fine. I don't really have an issue with that. And I have a hard time saying a coach can't cut a kid when a kid can cut a coach by leaving. I mean,
true.
It's kind of the same thing. And we're talking about players' rights and all of these things. And if a kid can cut bait and leave, then I think a coach should be able to cut bait with the kid. But again, you should be able to help him find a landing spot too. And that's the one thing about Brian Kelly that I did respect. When he wanted to fire a coach, he usually helped them find a landing spot someplace.
But something else that I've noticed here over the years is, like, there have been a lot of, or at least a handful anyway, of guys who have decided to transfer out of Notre Dame, but when Pro Day comes back around, you see a lot of them show back up here at Notre Dame, participating in Notre Dame's Pro Day, because they're going to get more exposure. And so I think that is, like, they continue to take care of those guys. I guarantee you that, like, if the same situation, like, Deion Sanders is not going to welcome any of these guys back to a Pro Day to let them work out 2 or 3 years down the road.
Not a chance. No chance. Right. Yeah.
Right. And look at Malik Zaire. Like, Malik still obviously he transferred.
Right.
He still considers himself, connected to Notre Dame, part of the Notre Dame family, and the whole thing. So it's just very, again, I get wanting to rebuild the roster, and the rules, like, right now are so much different than just a few years ago. Like, in the wake that, and I think they referenced this even in the article, the wake that Charlie Weiss left Kansas in, under scholarship, when you couldn't undersign at all, and there wasn't the open transfer portal like you have now. It took them years to try to build the roster numbers back up, whereas now the transfer portal, it is much easier, because you can just, like, okay, you guys are gone, and now we're just going to go fishing and bring it. It's like, but that's the other thing, like, with this Deion thing, is, like, there's no guarantee that guys that he brings in are going to be considerably better than what he just showed the door, unless he's pulling starters from half the schools in the SEC. I don't know.
Yeah. And again, I have no problem with him getting rid of guys, but just don't kick him to the curb like that. It's just, I don't know. I don't like it. Yeah. Because, like, somebody in the chat is like, hey, they were terrible. Make changes. Change is good. Yes, I have no problem with that. But these kids,
but you still have to do it in the right way.
Exactly. Just do it in the right way. That's all. You want to cut 51 kids? Peace be with you. Go ahead, cut them. But help them out a little bit, man.
Treat them like people's, not commodities. In the NFL, you're a commodity. In college, you're still a college kid. You still,
because when you're going and I realize he didn't recruit these kids, but he is going to go into people's living rooms and he's going to recruit other kids. And he's going to say something along the lines of, I'm going to take care of your son for the next 4 years. Well, somebody said that to these kids. Help them out and, take care of them.
Right. Exactly. So the NFL draft, of course, is coming up Thursday. Last minute mock drafts continue to fly at us, Vince. At this point in the draft, and not even today, but like earlier in the week, like this week of the draft even, how much attention have you paid to mock drafts in comparison to maybe a month or so ago?
A lot less, to be honest with you. Like, we're close enough that the real thing is about to happen. So I will be paying attention to the real thing. Like, I have not looked at any mock drafts recently because things are now starting to get haywire, right? You're starting to hear people are going to move down, they're going to move up, and then people are, well, if he does this and they do that. Nope, I want to hear the real thing tomorrow. That's what I care about right now.
Yeah, this is all, especially this week, and I agree with what you said, but especially this week, it's all disinformation season,
right?
Like yes. All these mocks, and it's like, and it's because like these like the high, I'm talking about like the higher end, like the Mel Kiper, McShays, and Daniel Jeremiah, like any one of those sorts who are putting out the mocks, they're getting at least information from actual NFL executives, Peter King, whoever it happens to be, and it's all like everyone's blowing smoke right now because they want you to think they're going to do one thing and then they're going to do another, and there's even like the extremes where you've got NFL executives who will, talk bad about a player simply for the sake of they want their stock to fall just so they can actually draft them, So
right.
That's what all of this last week or so is about. It's much more of that. So, and I agree. It's just like, get the draft here already. I'm tired of all the mocks. I don't want any more mocks.
Right.
I just want the actual draft, and
yep. Absolutely.
We're within a little bit more than 24 hours of it actually starting as we talk right now.
And I'll be excited to watch it. Like I'm kind of fired up. I mean, it happens to also be my son's birthday, but it'll be on in the background.
Yeah. So Siggy 13 wants to know, are the Cowboys taking Meyer? I'm hoping so. I'm with you. I just, and this is another one. Like, they held their press conference a couple of days ago, and of course they talked about tight ends, and so now everyone's convinced that they're taking a tight end. I just think if Michael Mayer is still there at 26, I do think that they're going to take him.
That's the biggest question. Is he still going to be there at 26?
Right. But I also don't think he's going to be there by 26. I think he'll get I think he'll get picked, but then you also have, people talking about, well, you shouldn't take a tight end in the first round. There are those kind of people, like running backs and tight ends are lower commodities and center, just like centers and guards or whatever. But I think they'll take him if he's still there. I'm not holding out much hope that he's actually going to be there, though.
I think all the bluster about who Michael Mayer is and how he's not that great and, blah, blah, blah. I think that's a bunch of nonsense. And I think he's going to get taken earlier than a lot of the experts think.
We'll see. I don't know. I
don't know either.
Three prominent guys, Kiper, McShay, and Dane Brugler from The Athletic, all mocked him to Dallas fairly, within the last couple of weeks. But
you can go to bed tonight with your fingers crossed, brother.
Yeah, but again, that's within the last couple of weeks, and what the information is, and this and that, and everything else. How much draft are you going to watch, and which network will you watch it on?
I'll watch ESPN because I don't get the NFL network. And I will, like I said, I will have the first round on and I'll be watching it. The Friday version, I'll probably turn it on, but most likely I'll look at like a clicker, like an update on my phone, that kind of a tracker, like that kind of a situation. That's probably what I'll do. I'm more interested in the first round when the guys are actually present. And they hang, with the jerseys and the fanfare and all that. Like I do buy into that a little bit. And then it'll be, okay, where are the Notre Dame guys going? And this year, there's only like 3 guys that are going to get drafted from Notre Dame. So like the interest level for me is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But also the Bears finally have a first round pick. So that does raise my interest level a little bit more.
True.
That kind of a
Very
thing.
true.
So
yeah, I'll watch. I usually, I'll watch the first few picks, kind of see how that goes. And I typically watch more ESPN. I'll flip over to NFL Network every now and then. I don't like the ABC because it's a little bit more of like the fluff background pieces and
Sure.
stuff like that, which I don't care as much about that. I just want the football side of it, But I'll watch a little bit early on, and then with Dallas picking at 26, I'm going to get impatient, and I can't sit there and just watch pick after pick after pick. So
Right.
I'll probably flip around a little bit, see what else is on, and then come back to it. And then like the rest of the weekend, it's basically how bored I am, and like what I'm doing, how good the weather is,
Exactly.
all that kind of stuff. I can watch most of it on my phone the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, I would say Father David Penny wants to know if Marcus Freeman is going to be at the draft. I doubt it because Michael Mayer is going to watch from home, and he's the only potential first-round draft pick. And so there's really no point in Marcus Freeman being at the draft.
I saw him do an interview on NFL Network today, and he had an Old Spice sweatshirt and an Old Spice sign, and then of course, he did the Old Spice, spiel there at the end of the interview.
Did he? It got cut off. Like I didn't hear the Old Spice part, so they obviously cut it off. I saw that on Twitter earlier this afternoon, and like he's the only first rounder possible for Notre Dame, so I don't think Marcus Freeman's going to be there.
Irish for life. You're working on a permanent ban from this show right now.
Must be an Eagles fan.
Kidding, of course. He says he prays he doesn't go to Dallas. Yeah, he'll just be hated by the other half of the country,
right?
If he does, since he was already hated by half because he was at Notre Dame to begin
so
with.
Sounds like the guys are going to have a draft show tomorrow, which is friggin' awesome, especially with Ryan. Like that's his thing is the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And Irish Chi-Town wants to know if I'm going to be on there with them. The answer is no, because it is my son's birthday, and I do want to hang out with the little man as much as I possibly can. And actually, the grass is actually screaming my name as well. I need to cut the grass. So
I'm taking a couple days off, and that's as long as the weather holds.
It's on the list.
Probably what my afternoon is going to entail tomorrow before the draft starts.
I think that's
my backyard is with all this rain we've got, and my dog. My backyard is a mess right now.
Well, that's the problem. Like the first one of the spring, I've got all my parts of my yard. Some are long, some are short, some are long, some are short.
Mm-hmm.
So like you got to get it evened out, this first time, and then you got some good cuts coming. But like tomorrow, I think it's going to be the day, and come home immediately before school. That way, I don't miss any of the draft. And
my neighbor has already mowed his yard twice, and he might have even mowed it a third time the other day. And it's like
there's people,
he was, and we've got it like a couple of them, and I'm like, why are you in such a rush to get to this? It's always
I know, seriously,
it's not going anywhere.
No, no, and both people on either side of me have cut theirs at least once, if not twice.
Yeah.
And so mine is definitely looking like the rough house on the block.
Mine too.
I do have to get to it, but
my front yard looks much better than the back. The back is it's literally it looks like like wild prairie grass or something out there at this point. Fill in the blank. It would be blank if the Green Bay Packers pick a wide receiver in the first round after trading Aaron Rodgers to the Jets.
Friggin' awesome. Like I would be there all day for that. All day. I think that would be I want them to have a camera somehow on him when that happens. Because I want to see the expression on his face when they do that.
There's talk that, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, like they might go after him. It would be hilarious because obviously, this is what started this whole spiral when they drafted the quarterback in the first round instead of a wide receiver. They never picked a wide receiver in the first round the whole time Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback in Green Bay. Wow. And so if they traded him to the Jets, and then the first thing that they did was get Love a wide receiver, it would just be hysterical. And that's what I need to make sure that I'm tuned in for that pick. That'll probably be like an hour or so into the draft.
It'd be great. It'd be so stinking great. And did you see the interview with him or like any of the footage of him going to Jets, the facility?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of the press conference.
He's all, shaven and he got his hair cut and he doesn't look like a bum anymore. Like,
right.
Just wait.
Nice little comb to the side.
Yeah. Just wait, Jets fans. Just wait. Just wait.
So we're both sports movie fans. Where do you stand on the movie Draft Day, Vince?
I love that movie. It's funny that you asked this question because 2 days ago, maybe it was Sunday. I think it was Sunday. It was Sunday. Kind of working my way through the honey-do list, that kind of a thing. And I was like, I would kind of want to watch a movie. I was looking for that movie to watch. And there was nowhere on any of the subscriptions that I have that I was able to turn. I wanted to watch that movie specifically, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I like that movie a lot.
Interesting. I cannot stand this movie.
Really?
Draft Day is so bad.
Oh, I like it a lot.
It gets better at the end when they're actually into the draft stuff, but I think I'd maybe seen it once, and I watched it a couple days ago, like you. I found it on the guy, and I found it and I watched it. It is so slow paced, especially at the beginning. And Kevin Costner does nothing to liven it up. And the whole romance story, the love story with Jennifer Garner.
That's hard to stomach.
I think if they just cut that out, you could lop a good 20. It's almost 2 hours long. You could lop a good 20 minutes off the movie because it's completely unnecessary. You don't need that.
Right.
Because they've got, it's they're working with the NFL. They're actually using NFL teams and all this stuff. But then the whole thing with John Gruden at the start, they show, John Gruden on TV, and they're talking about the Bo Callahan, the quarterback. And he's like, we haven't seen a quarterback like him since Andrew Luck. Well, this movie only came out 2 years after Andrew Luck was drafted. So that's been a really long time. You haven't seen a quarterback like him in 2 years.
2 seasons.
Okay, great. Right. And then Vontae Mack, he's on the phone with Costner, and he's like, you should draft a gap plug-in middle linebacker, as they show him rushing off the edge and sacking the quarterback, not plugging the gap.
You are digging deep for the hatred on this movie, dude.
And it's just it's so unrealistic. They wanted it so badly to be realistic, but it was totally unrealistic. With this whole combination of trading the picks, and then he ends up taking the middle linebacker at the top of the draft, still stuck, losing the picks. He doesn't know that he's going to get him back. And then, literal Hail Mary, he gets the draft picks back. It's just, to me, the best part of it was actually the ESPN NFL Network stuff. It was the most realistic, the guys. It just
the actual draft.
The movie bugs me because it's just so unrealistic with all the scenarios. And then, like I said, then you try to stuff this love story between Costner and Garner in there, and it just didn't work.
The love story for me falls right in line with For Love of the Game. They could lop off the love story and it would be a great movie.
Jane. Even Jane in For Love of the Game, I would take Jane in that story over the Costner Garner story.
Well, at least
and how Jane bugged me in For Love of the Game.
I know how Jane bugged you, but I can fathom Jane and Kevin Costner being together. Jennifer Garner and Kevin Costner being together is a little more of a stretch for me because she could be his daughter.
The age difference.
Yeah, that's the hard part for me. And I realize he's a GM and he's probably making a lot of money. She's doing just fine too. She's the cap analyst for the team. I'm sure she's bringing home a pretty good check too.
You know what? Here's what I would have done. I would have made, I realized probably to get it made, they probably had to have Costner, but Dennis Leary, who played the Browns head coach, he would have been better in the Costner role, I think. And then Sam Elliott, who was the Wisconsin coach, the old guy with the mustache, make him the Cleveland Browns coach. And then I think it's a better movie right off the top.
That's very interesting.
You got to ditch the love story.
No, that's interesting.
I've been accused of this. I've been accused of this before, Father David, that I don't believe in love. I just don't believe in bad love stories in movies. That's what I don't believe in.
Yeah. But Rocky does it for you.
That's right.
Ugh.
Rocky and Adrian. Come on. It's a love story we can all get behind. Last question. Will Ferrell went to an LA Kings playoff game with face paint on over the weekend. Have you ever worn or would you wear face paint to a game?
I would not. I have not. I will not. Not in a Fox, not with a box or whatever. No, I would not do that in any way whatsoever. I'm just not a face painting guy. I never have been. Like, I've never felt the urge to like spell something out with like my bare chest or anything like that at a game. Like that's just not me. I don't know. It's not me.
I agree. I would have to be paid, I think, to wear face. Like the first
Yes.
thing I think of when I think of face paint is the Seinfeld David Putty episode when the Devils go to support the team, you know, and he's going to the New Jersey Devils. That's right.
Yeah.
All signs point to yes. Oh, D-Rock, thank you very much. Hit the like button on your way out. We do appreciate it. And of course, subscribe, rate, and review. So we're going to be off for the next few days, but there will be a draft show with Brian and Ryan tomorrow night. So
check it out.
Look forward to that. And have a great weekend. I guess extended weekend, as it turns out. And Vince and I will be back on Monday. Let's see if there's any more breaking news to talk about at that point. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe Sam Hartman's going to hit the portal.
Whoa. Off the ledge. Off the ledge. Come on now. Reel it back in. That would be a movie.
Yes, it would. Oh, boy.
All right. We will talk to you on Monday. Thanks again. IB Nation Sports Talk.